Um, I'll bring this meeting of the Dixon Unified School Board to order. Since we're doing closed session after the business meeting, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call. Lloyd?
Here.
Jewel?
Here.
Melissa, I assume, is excused tonight. Catlin?
Here.
And I am here, so we have a quorum. Okay.
Luke, if I might jump in just for a minute before you start. I just wanted to point out to anybody tuning into the meeting that our agenda tonight, with the exception of one, well, they're all facility items with the exception of our very first one, which is a review of scholarship application process at Dixon High School. So on our agenda tonight, we don't have anything related to reopening of schools, COVID-19, any of those things. There'll be another special meeting next Thursday at which we'll give the update on reopening progress. We'll distribute a written update tomorrow. So if you were tuning in to try to get the latest on that, real quickly, the latest would be we're working really, really hard on planning, and we'll be providing the update there next week. So tonight's agenda really consists of all the things we would have done last week, except for we knew we were going to spend a lot of time on COVID. And as a special meeting, our agenda is stripped down, and on these nights, public comment, community stakeholder presentations, all those are taken off the agenda as they're not required in a special meeting. So just wanted to help out if anybody was thinking update tonight on COVID, that's next Thursday. So thanks for letting me get that in there.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Okay, so notice to public. Persons wishing to speak to agenda items may present their written requests at this time. While the written request is optional, those making a written request will be recognized first. Persons wishing to introduce a subject not on the agenda may also present their written request at this time. The board president will recognize you for discussion at the appropriate time. Non-scheduled agenda items will be introduced under section 6 on the agenda. Speakers may be limited to 5 minutes per topic at the discretion of the board president. In accordance with board bylaw 9324B, the district may tape, film, stream, or broadcast any open board meeting. The recording or broadcast may capture images or sounds of those attending the meeting. Any district recording may be erased or destroyed 30 days after the meeting. Recordings made at the direction of the board during a meeting are public records and upon request shall be made available for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. And since we are not in together to present written requests, if you do want to speak when it's appropriate for public comment, you raise your hand on the Zoom app, which you can find under reactions at the bottom of the screen for those of you who have not already done this. Okay, I believe Ms. Masita is going to be here at some point, but we have a quorum, so we'll get started. Okay, information, discussion, and action.
Yes, so I'm going to give most of this, if not almost all of it, to Stephanie Marquez, who's principal of Dixon High School. And just to frame things a little bit, back just a couple days or even the day before graduation, it became apparent to Annabelle Rubio and her family that her applications for community scholarships had not made it to the community groups awarding the scholarships. So a horrible, horrible situation, really upsetting, and we recognize that 100%. And so we'd had some previous discussion with the Rubios at a board meeting and said we'd come back and present some updates on how the process will continue moving forward with some refinements to it. So Stephanie is here tonight to walk us through that. And Stephanie, are you going to share your screen? You are muted right now.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
Mark, can you open that up?
Share.
There we go. Now, if y'all give me just a second to find it, that would be fantastic. So,
There we go.
let me go get this. All right. Can you all see that? I'm notoriously bad at screen sharing.
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
Okay. So these are some notes I read up for this evening, and I want to echo what Brian said, that this was a terrible thing. And Annabelle is a fantastic student and a great young woman that's kind of on my special side. So as the leader of Dixon High School, I accept full responsibility for what happened. And I just want to walk through sort of some assumptions, how we got where we were, and what we're going to do in the future. So first, some assumptions about the community scholarship program at Dixon High School. The only reason Dixon High School is in, quote, the business, and you can see it on here, of monitoring the community scholarship process through the Office of the Registrar are the following. First, many of our community scholarship providers need assistance with the process. So while some of our community scholarships come from very organized groups that do this sort of thing regularly, like some of our service groups, there are some individual people that need a lot of support through the process. We are continually trying to make the process, make sure that the process is equitable and all students have the opportunity to apply and be considered. So that is why historically the scholarships are organized by the Office of our Registrar. The community scholarship process began in February, as it does most years. However, we do collect those scholarships and advertise them throughout the fall. And it is a hard copy system. Going into last year, it was a hard copy system. And this is mostly because most of our providers really want that hard copy packet for their applicants to evaluate and look at together. We closed the school completely during the original submission period. If you remember, when we closed, we didn't close and do distance learning. We closed hard for a couple of weeks, and then that time kept extending. When we opened again, we had to transition to an electronic process, but we still had no staff or students on campus. So that transition happened without people there. We do not have a say in the criteria for scholarships. That's just something that's come up. Though our registrar spends lots of times with the providers to assist them in choosing their criteria for their scholarships. Many of our community scholarships are memorial scholarships, and those providers often need and deserve some extra support as the process is often, if not always, emotionally difficult. Right now, Dixon High School has several memorial scholarships going with people that are, it's very timely. It's raw and it's fresh, and Maria, our registrar, does a great job of walking those families and folks through the process. Seniors in high school, I feel 30 years in and raising a couple myself. Seniors in high school are generally not good at getting things done in the spring of their senior year. There are exceptions, but this is true all the time. This was incredibly amplified this past spring with our closure. And I think those of you that have heard me speak have heard me speak about the tough time our seniors had. They shut down. They shut down emotionally, especially in late March through the end of April. And with all of their support people, parents, teachers, and staff developing new ways of doing everything also. So it was a tough time for our seniors. Typically, the community scholarship application process is dependent on lots of adult nudging and nagging from parents, teachers, our AVID program, our college advisors. So those students that submitted before the closure had more concrete in-person help than those that submitted after the closure. We will be making changes to the process based on what happened here, beginning the school year. First, we will be updating all of our forms, instructions, and applications to simplify the process. The process as a hard copy process alone is cumbersome. And it's cumbersome because we typically are there to walk kids through it, and it allows for a lot of individual work on those, and obviously that's not good if we have to go distance again or continue with distance. We will prepare for all community scholarship communication to be electronic, so it is not dependent on an open campus. The shift alone with communicating with our seniors electronically only and not in person, we're getting better at it, and our kids are ready to be good at that, and they got very good at that very fast, but that's not how we rolled at Dixon High School. We were a people school. We will send email receipts to students when their applications are submitted, and again, we will have providers send receipt of applications received. We will have one due date as opposed to the multiple extensions we had this year. And we will implement our advisory system. That's a system I'm planning right now for next year to support students in distance learning, so we have more linear lines of communication between our students, parents, and staff members. That's where we're going. And for you, Annabelle, I apologize for everything my school did.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
Sure thing. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, do we have board questions?
No.
Would you just go through a little more detail on the email receipts from the school and the provider and how those will work?
Well, since my registrar is on break and I don't have the providers here, I will tell you what I plan to do, but that's going to be collaborative with the registrar and the providers when they're back online again.
Okay.
But when the students submit their scholarships to the registrar will receipt that. In Annabelle's case, that happened. She receipted the receipt. She noted the receipt of the scholarship applications. They didn't get from the registrar to the organization, the providers. So what we need to do also is get receipt back from the providers, a final list of what they had, what they received, and get that to students also, so that this mistake doesn't happen.
Okay, so will the receipts from the providers, they'll be going directly to the applicant? And will the receipt be coming back to the registrar's office as well?
I don't know where it goes. The problem with it going to the applicant is that would require our registrars to send that many individual emails. And I don't think we can do that because students can't get other students' information. So what we would have to do is have a list come to the school of what each provider received, and then we would have to send individual emails to students. We can't publish a full list of every student's awards or receipt of application.
Yeah, you can BCC though, so they don't see the other people they're going to. I'm just concerned to make sure. I just want to make sure in the future that the community can trust that somehow the student knows that their stuff got there.
Right.
So that'll be an email receipt from the actual scholarship organization, hopefully.
So let me walk through it again. The providers will provide us a list. We will send individual messages to students that they got them. We could possibly have the providers send them, but that gets a little fuzzy with information for kids. So I'm not excited about that. But I'm developing a whole new advisory system for next year where, well, if it gets off the ground. For this year, this year, here we go. Where every single student will be in a cohort with an advisor. That's anyone from an administrator to a counselor to, maybe some teachers, but our support staff needs to support so teachers can teach. So for example, if Annabelle was a student and she was in my cohort, I would be regularly communicating just me with Annabelle and her mom so that they had a straight line back to me. So if we have that system going, most likely the advisor would be the one reaching out to their seniors and saying, hey, you guys in my cohort, these are the things that you've applied to. Are there any errors? So that we close that loop with a direct line of communication.
Yeah, and will there be some kind of a trigger date so the applicants know if I haven't gotten my confirmation from the registrar by this date,
yes.
I should check with them?
Yes.
And part of our problem this spring was our trigger date kept moving. So our church, we did not, and that was one of the things I mentioned in my write-up. We had multiple dates because of the closure and then the gonna open. So that date kept moving. So we will not move a date next year. We will have one date and we will have a finite trigger after that date.
Yeah, which has its own problems because you want to try to help the kids, but if they miss the date, are we saying we're going to be more strict on you got to meet the deadline dates? Or are you just talking about the trigger date?
The trigger date. I mean, and even in this case, not with Annabelle, but in this year, our registrar was still reaching out to kids and still helping kids do them late. We did not turn any student away, and we most likely wouldn't. But honestly, if we're going to go distance learning, our kids are going to have to meet dates and read emails and do things. And I'm not inferring that Annabelle did not. She did. But we can't go with 6 or 7 dates on these things and keep running the process around and around.
Yeah,
I'd add the suggestion that if we're talking about high school seniors who are presumably, if they're applying for scholarships, they've applied for admission to college and accepting their offer of admission, and all, those have hard dates. And so I don't think we're out of line to say we're going to have hard dates for the scholarship applications. It just allows for the process to run efficiently, I think.
And
Okay.
to be honest, I'm excited about the advisory process, especially with our seniors. I think we'll get more participation on FAFSA dates and college admission, college application dates and all of these dates. So by the time we get to scholarships, this advisory system will keep them sort of online and what to do. Please remember that we did not communicate with our kids through email until we opened again and got a system up and running. That was a whole new kind of communication for us and our kids. And frankly, it made us all sad, kids and us.
I know with my kids, it took them a long time. I mean, my son really didn't start using email until I think he was getting ready for college. They text everything, and email is kind of, for some of them, not a normal way of doing things. So, okay, thank you,
Luke,
Stephanie.
I have a question, Luke. Stephanie. So, if this year, and I'm sort of hoping this won't happen next year, but in the event that we end up not being able to have an in-person ceremony next year to hand out the scholarships and that sort of thing, is there a way that we can publicize to talk about who won and that can come from the school in sort of a more formal way?
Yes. And that could have happened this year, but we went too late. We still had kids applying clear up until the week we ended school. So, and we did not want to turn kids away. And I think that, yes, absolutely. There was a list made and we put it in the program and we sent it out as a brief press release also. But no, we need to have a ceremony.
Yeah, or at least something I think where the community organizations get a little more. I saw a couple of them that were publicized individually about where some money went, and that was nice to see. But I just think to let the community know where who the scholarship recipients were, that kind of thing. So
absolutely,
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Any other board questions or comments?
No.
Okay, let's open this to public comment and questions. Go ahead. Mark, Jill's raising her hand there. There you go.
I want to thank you all for having us on the agenda and discussing this because it's very important to us that it doesn't happen to another student. And I guess I have a question for Ms. Marquez. And Ms. Marquez, thank you for your kind comments and all of your hard work. And so the date that we had, I think it was May 1st is when the scholarships were due. So are you saying that you accepted them after that date?
No, we may have if kids were in the process. We had a lot of students that had trouble with the process. So if they'd contacted us and we're still working on format or something like that, we would continue to help them. I'm just talking about organizational time after that. With the year ending, it just got crazy. Yeah. It was hard to hold an evening thing. We didn't get to hold an evening celebration for our distinguished scholars, and we had ordered some things for them so that they could, we could have a little ceremony and honor them, but then they were delayed through shipping issues And it was just, it's not what we want for our kids. We tried our best to honor our seniors as much as we could, but all of those things were so delayed, with everything from shipping to receiving to, you know, just end of the year without people there. It was awful. And that's not what we want, though our kids did great. You know, I don't want to say they were awful or in for that at all, but yeah, the deadline was May 1st.
Okay, yeah, because that was the deadline that we.
But if they were in process, we helped them get through it.
Do we know exactly what happened as to how Annabelle, how it just did not get processed? How did that just one student just fall through the cracks? Do we know any?
I know, and I mean, I can answer that publicly, but I can also happily, if you want to call me a little bit later, tell you privately how that happened. I mean, I don't know, Brian, do you want me to?
I think a general answer, Stephanie, is appropriate, you know, just to address this to the extent that we can. And then at the same time, I think just with regards to, you know, there's personnel involved in this.
Right, and then,
yeah, finding some balance there in content.
We're not looking to get anyone in trouble.
Oh.
No, Jill, that's not what we hear you saying at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
When push comes to shove, the responsibility for this is mine. You know, a few years ago, Brian asked me to be a principal, and I was like, oh, but you know, it's mine, and I own it, and I own that for your family here. That said, what had happened is the registrar was collecting submissions from students, and a lot of students were emailing for support and getting help and getting those final submissions in. Annabelle was one of those kids, and when it came in, our staff member went, yay, Annabelle did it. And her brain shifted to, yay, Annabelle's in. And when you called me and I called her, she said, I submitted them. And she went, oh my goodness, and looked behind her, and they were there. So it was a human error of the most honest kind.
Right.
Like,
right.
You know, losing, I don't want to compare Annabelle's experience, just that losing your keys or locking your keys out of your car or something. It was just, she thought they were one place and they were somewhere else.
Right. No, and we were, no, I mean, people make mistakes, and that's just life. And that's why we appreciate your time with this meeting. And so thank you.
And the mistake ultimately is mine, and I will say that as someone that has a deep respect for you guys and your daughter.
Yeah, no.
She knows that. I see her.
Yeah, you see her. Yeah, you see that.
Well, I do have an additional comment. We've been dealing with this since graduation, and transcripts have not been submitted yet to Berkeley for Annabelle.
They were.
No,
they were. No.
Okay. I just.
Yeah, sorry. Mark is kind of.
I'm putting it at the tail end.
Yeah, you know how husbands are. You tell them, you know, later in the day.
You know how husbands are. Jill. Yes.
Brian.
Anyway.
Guilty as charged.
No. Remember, Stephanie, transcripts that were sent from the high school on June 16th, I think. Well, as of this day, today, Berkeley has still not received her transcript. And I know that we had another official one printed, and I FedExed it to Berkeley. But there were 3 kids from Dixon that got in, and those other 2 kids, their transcripts have been received.
Garrett's haven't been received. It's just
Jaime's. Well, just Jaime's has been received. So I guess it's just a Berkeley issue, and
we have the same thing at all of our UCs.
Yeah, and we can't accept financial aid until they get the transcript. So I've been nauseous and very stressed out because school's got a tuition bill already. So.
Yeah, trust me, I know about that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Annabelle, I'm so excited for you. You're going to do great there. And it's a little up in the air what's going on with people living there and all those things. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. But I hope you love it as much as my son does.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
he's there and he loves Cal.
He helped me make my schedule, so shout out to Ian.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
I hope he didn't screw it all up for you. That would be really
Me too.
okay, do you guys have anything else you'd like to say?
I do. I would just like to give like the rest of the story on what happened and how amazing the community has been. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Annabelle ended up receiving almost $5,000, I think it was $5,500 in scholarships. She got Rotary. Seroptimus was kind enough to give her one. The Tim Foundation, the Tully Consulting Group. Am I leaving?
Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson Realty gave Annabelle his first official annual scholarship.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I just want to say we couldn't be more blessed, and we're just so very thankful. And I want to thank Ms. Marquez and thank you, Mr. Dolan, for all of your support. And I know you had some behind the scenes work to do with that as well, and we're just very, very grateful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Annabelle deserved the help after everything. And, you know, I appreciate your guys' thoughtful consideration and patience as we work through this. And hopefully you see, and I know your mom wants to make a comment too, but hopefully you can see there are some, I think some real different steps in the process now that should ensure that, you know, nothing falls through the cracks again, you know. And it's a combination, and Jill, like we talked about on the phone, it's a combination of some accountability for the students in checking when they get messages back of here's what we have you applied for, as well as just obviously the burden falls on us first and foremost. But yeah, I appreciate the chance to talk with you guys, and
No, we do.
yeah,
And,
so thank you.
and it's all worked out, and Annabelle's not going to go to campus because there's just way too many restrictions. So her
I don't
dad,
like rules.
her dad is building her a she shed, UC Berkeley Extension in the backyard. So
Oh, nice. Okay.
Good.
That's good.
yeah, so thank you all so very much.
No, thank you.
Thank
And
you,
Mark, I
guys.
think if you can open up Yvonne there, she's just our password code there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi to all of you. Thank you very much for, I'm the Grammy, but I still get emotional over everything that's happened. So I want to thank all of you. I know it was a difficult time, but when this happened, it was just devastating. So, and I know you know that, I've said that before. I want to thank Stephanie. I think, and I don't know who all worked on this process, but I think it sounds like a good process. I hope it's a good process. My question is, the providers of the scholarships, have you run that by them? Have you got that far yet? Because I can see being in Seroptimus at one time and some of the other organizations, it's just another something for them to do, which is very important. The people on the scholarship committee, they take that job extremely serious. So I want to make sure that that part is highlighted, because I think it's extremely important. And again, thank you to each of you. I probably could say more things, but I'm not going to. I just want to, we're grateful for what Annabelle has been blessed with. And she's always got our support. And I hope and pray that the school district, this will never happen again. I hope and pray. I hope and pray. Because we got to seal up those cracks. And what I appreciate is the district, Brian, that you have taken credit, not credit, you've taken responsibility. And Stephanie, there you are. I appreciate you saying that also, because I've heard Brian, but I have not ever heard Stephanie say that. So that means a lot to me. It means a whole lot to me as the grandmother and Papa here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Okay, Stephanie, do you want to answer where we are in the process of communicating with the different groups about how that is going to be done. I assume that's probably still in the works, right?
Well, yeah, we won't do that till they convene. So all that will be different for our providers is they just have to provide us a list with the students they received applications from. And then they'll ultimately have to provide a list of students that earned their scholarships. So 2 lists. They don't need to send an email unless their will is to send emails to kids directly. I'm not a fan of that, but we don't get a list back from our providers, and that's the piece that was missing in this instance. So we were operating the whole time assuming that they got to the provider, and so we need to close that loop.
And that's great because, you know, I mean, another situation I can think of is we could send one and the provider could lose it. And having
Sure.
this list, it's another way to catch that if that occurs. So the simpler we keep it for the providers while still having those checks and balances, the less likely there is to be a problem.
I think it's really important to remember, though, that not all of our providers are wanting to send emails to individual students. Some of them are, many of them are, but we do have some providers that aren't in a place to do that. And so that's where some of the work comes into it. But we will be collaborating with our providers probably in January about process, and then going from there.
Yeah, and even if they don't want to do that, there's still the checks and balance that they send the list to the registrar and we tell the kids that.
Right, right.
Okay, any other public questions or comments? Jill is raising her hand again. You're still muted, Jill.
Muted.
There you go.
No, I would be more than happy to volunteer to help with the scholarship process in the spring if you would, if that's kosher. So
Terrific. Yeah,
That
thank
is
you, Jill.
super kosher. Mhm.
okay. Yeah, I don't want to violate any confidentialities with kids, but I would get right in there and help you get that all processed, do whatever I could.
That'd be great. So I'll be calling you, Jill.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
And just, you know, a role that might be helpful, and thank you, Jill, for that offer, might be as a little bit of a liaison between the school and the providers, right?
To take some of that provider communication. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know a lot of people in this town, and as do your folks, and it might be, you know, my in-laws oversee one of the scholarships, right? And for them, just the mechanics of all this, especially this year with the electronic thing, was really difficult. And so it might be that some people could just benefit from somebody who's got the inside scoop on how things are organized, to even sit down with them at times and say, okay, here's what you got. I shared with you, you know, to help my in-laws, I printed documents, and that's how they were able to get things done. And that might not be necessary. For some folks it might be, but that could be a role that you could really be helpful with. So thanks for the offer, and we'll figure that out.
Yeah, please. Yes. And Mom, you would probably want to help too.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, she's muted.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other public questions or comments on this issue? Okay, Mark, hearing none. I will just say one last thing, and that is kudos to our community organizations that stepped up to help give Annabelle her financial send-off to Cal, and go Bears. Okay, so let's close this and move on to information and discussion and action item A2, John Knight Middle School Renovation Project, LPA.
Okay, so I welcome Lee Coop into our meeting this evening. Lee is one of the members of the School Site Solutions Incorporated team. School Site Solutions are the consultants that we have contracted with for project management and financial reporting support on all of our Measure Q products. So Lee's been working with us for a good while now. She is the mastermind behind all of our documentation, works with our CBOC, the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, with all of those meetings there as well. So we have a number of contracts to bring to you tonight for your review. I'll just say before Lee starts, we did have the Bond Oversight Committee last Wednesday. And so they have already seen all of these documents, and they approved each of them as a legitimate expenditure under Measure Q. So we have in a little bit of a backwards twist, they've seen this stuff before you folks have. So anyway, Lee, it is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Dolan. My name is Lee Coop with School Site Solutions, as he said. And good evening to President of the Board Foster and to members of the board and members of the community. I'm happy to provide information on several items that are coming up and explain to you what they are. And as Superintendent Dolan said, to me, the appropriate time sequence is on these items. The CBOC, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, sees items like this first. They do not approve them because remember they are advisory to you as a board, but they approve them as valid Measure Q expenditures, which is their oversight role. So we like to have them sort of as a vetting of these types of things, ask questions, and then if there were any problems with it, we could pull it from your agenda, make the appropriate changes, and then come to you with those changes. But in all of these items tonight, they were approved as valid Measure Q expenditures. I would add that they like to add the language as presented, and so for what that's worth. So this first one is a sort of a catch-up item. It is the John Knight Middle School renovation project. It's for LPA, which is the project architect, and it's for ratification of two agreements. One is for ramp reconfiguration design work, and the other one is for roofing design work. These were two items of a scope increase that one, the ramp reconfiguration was required by the state. And so this is not the construction work, remember, this is design work. And then the roofing was part of, improvements on the infrastructure and the shell integrity of that campus. So the first one is for a not to exceed, and it's for the ramp, it's for not to exceed $27,500. The second agreement is a not to exceed amount for $44,000. And again, this is a catch-up item. These were approved administratively last year, and inadvertently they were not brought to you for ratification. So I wanted to catch up on that, get this formally approved by you folks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have any board questions on this item or these items? Seeing none, do we have any public questions or comments on these items?
I'm seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the LPA Architectural Engineering Services Agreements for the ramp and the roof.
So move.
I'll
We
second.
have a motion. And we have a motion and we have a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is the time extension.
Thank you, President Foster. Again, this is for LPA, the project architect for the John Knight Middle School renovation project. And because of the scope increases in that project, we are now at a point where we are extending the project completion date from the current spring or summer, actually summer, to the end of September of this year. It is in a not to exceed amount of $45,000 for time and materials used. It's an hourly. Again, these are just like the one before. This is only for work that is done. We do not pay a lump sum even if the work wasn't done. So they submit invoices and they are monitored by our project management team for accuracy. So again, this is for $45,000 and it's for a time extension for that project completion date that has extended out to now end of September for their work. And so I would ask for approval for that. as well. And again, the CBOC has seen this and approved as a valid Measure Q expenditure.
Okay, any board questions or comments? So Lee, just to be clear, this is because the prior contract did not extend and we're engaging them for a longer period of time. Is that correct?
Correct. This is
And
their
as you said, it's an hourly rate not to exceed.
correct. So we determined that, particularly Jim Babachi of my colleague, determined that a time and materials hourly rate is much more economical for the school district than to increase it by a percentage of the construction cost. So again, this is not just lump sum, no matter how much work done, it's by work actually done.
Okay. Jewel, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Any other board questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Any public questions or comments on this item?
I'm seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the LPA Inc. architectural time extension.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lloyd,
Aye.
Jewel,
Aye.
Catlin,
Aye.
and I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, on to RGA contract proposal for architectural engineering services, which is item 3A4.
Thank you. This is an interesting item. We are now going into our new architect pool for work going forward. Our RGA is Rainforest Grau Architects. They are out of Sacramento, and you as a board approved them to be part of the architect pool for our coming bond projects and non-bond projects. So I've tapped them to help out the district in this area. Excuse me if I go into too much detail, I'll try to keep it brief. And if you've heard this, I'm sorry if you've heard it already. So Division of State Architect requires that all previous projects, these may be very old projects, we call them legacy projects, they require that all the paperwork be finished, completely buttoned up, and the project completely closed out, which is a reasonable thing to do. That is now before they can approve any future projects on the same campus. So what has happened is that DSA, Division of State Architect, flagged an old project, which was many years ago, many decades ago. It was alterations at the old Dixon High School, and it was not, the paperwork was not completely done. And there is a bid coming up to do the windows and the kitchen remodel at John Knight Middle School. And in order to get the plans approved for that, DSA flagged that old project to be what we call closed out. So we have determined that there are a number of unclosed out projects in the district. And I would like to say that Dixon Unified is not an exception in this around the state. There are many districts that have to work on getting their old projects closed out. It does not mean that students were allowed to occupy buildings that were not completed correctly or anything like that, or were not sound or constructed correctly. This merely is paperwork. And so we're in this situation where we have to close out projects. So I've tapped RGA and recommended that the district use them to help out with this closeout process. To get it started, this is a contract for $5,000. It is to work on one particular project, unclosed out project at John Knight, way back when it was the old Dixon High School, and also to start working on Anderson Elementary School. So what happens is this is a lot of forensic detective work, and there's a lot of research, and I, with the help of Stephanie Arias and Mark Monticello, we dive into the district archives, the dusty rooms over at the maintenance yard. We start to look at files. We pull project files from many decades ago, if we can find them. We pull up old plans, and fortunately, there are some scanned plans that are electronic, so we did find some of those. We have found, again, unfortunately, that there are 19 unclosed out projects in Dixon Unified. So I have asked RGA to prioritize those to any that would affect future projects. And that includes this one at John Knight, and then Anderson coming up. Tremont would come after that. So this is for the work that they do to take it through DSA. DSA requires that an architect do this. I cannot do it, the district cannot do it. So we do have to have the services, and they are real good at doing this process and getting the forms in, getting the signatures done, and there's a lot of just paperwork going back and forth. The process is hampered somewhat because of the COVID, and the DSA offices are actually not physically open with any staff there. So there are issues there, but apparently they're going okay, because I'm happy to tell you that there's good news and on this one project. As if we go forward on it, we're thinking it could be an easy one to close out, the one that would affect the John Knight Middle School Windows and Kitchen project coming up. Good. So I'm happy to report that, and ask that you approve this contract. It's an hourly basis again. Not to exceed 5,000. And I can tell you, in all truth, you will see amendments to this. We will have to pay more in future to have more work done to get all these 19 projects closed out.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Any board questions?
Nope.
Hey, Lee, I'm just a couple things, just to be curiosity and to be clear for people watching. How old is the oldest one of these not closed projects? Can you give us kind of a ballpark estimate? I won't hold you to it to the year.
Yeah, it could be 30 to 40 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you said this, but just to be clear to everyone that's watching, if we don't get these closed out, not only this one that's flagged, but there could be others that could delay the rebuild of John Knight Middle School, correct?
There could be. We anticipate this is the only one, we're hoping. But going forward with the bond program, Anderson would be stopped in its tracks. If you did not close out the projects in Anderson, you could not do a modernization project there.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll add in one comment, if I may, and that's that the majority, perhaps the vast majority of these closeout issues are with portable classrooms that were added over time. That's the overwhelming type of project that we've had, right? If you think about it, we built New Dixon High, and we built Gretchen Higgins in the last 18 years or so. And everything else that has happened around here have been portables. And when you go back those multiple years, you have to go all the way back to 90 or 91 for when Tremont was constructed. So the vast majority of stuff we've done is been portables. So we believe the issues are primarily with them. So it's not that we had massive projects where these I's weren't dotted and T's crossed. It was a bunch of smaller things that unfortunately are in need of correction, and we've got the right folks to help us with that.
Are any of those portable projects that weren't closed out, any of those portables no longer in existence?
Yes.
Yes.
And that actually makes it easier.
Yeah.
And in fact, this is what's going to happen on the one at John Knight Middle School. I think we're going to be able to determine that all the work that was in that first project has been redone. And so there's nothing to close out anymore. So what happens is the DSA will require this current renovation project to be appropriately closed out. And then we can write a letter saying that the old project no longer exists. And they stick that in the file, they're done with it. So it costs $500 to reopen the files every time. So the state gets their little share of that. It is a lot of portable projects. There's a smattering of other projects, and it will be interesting as we go through the months coming up. You'll see these projects come up, and they might jog your memories, or you might have been in school when these projects were happening. So it's interesting, the whole detective work that's involved.
Okay, thank you. Any other board questions or comments? Seeing none. Any public questions or comments on this item?
I'm seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion for approval of the RGA contract proposal for our architectural engineering services for closeout of legacy products at John Knight Middle School and Anderson Elementary.
I'll move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, on to John Knight Middle School renovation, Yuba Sutter inspection services time extension.
Thank you. Again, this is regarding the extension of the completion date on the construction at that school at John Knight Middle School. So again, once we extend the project, then the project inspector needs to be there longer as well. So this goes through August 31st. I anticipate that we'll probably see another amendment on this because I think it's going to go a little bit further. I asked Jim Bombachi why it was just August 31st, and at this point he says, well, I just want to take it out to where I know, and as we refine it, we can get into the final dates on this. The project inspector is really important because they are a big part of that previous board item, the closeout of these projects. So we keep the project inspector going on all the paperwork that they need to do. And between the architect and the project inspector, they're very important for DSA to see that projects are closed out. But on this one, this is a not to exceed item for $28,000. Again, hourly. Bob Boyer, who is the gentleman who's our project inspector, he's been out there this whole time, so he kind of knows, he pretty much knows what the billing is per month, so that's what he based that on. And it's from June 1st through August 31st of this year. And again, not to exceed.
Great, thank you, Lee. Any board questions? And Lee, this is the project inspector that's required by DSA for us to have, correct?
Correct.
Okay, any public questions or comments on this item?
Seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the time extension agreement with Yuba Sutter Inspection Services for John Knight Middle School.
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes.
Thank
Thank you. Okay, School Site Solutions Amendment number 1 to contract.
Great, thank you. I'm going to take this one since Lee is a staff member with School Site Solutions. It's not appropriate for her or anybody else from the firm to present this one. So we contracted with School Site Solutions first in December of 2018. And since that time, they have been providing all of our support with project management, some of the DSA closeout assistance, our budget and expenditure tracking, document filing, contract management, all of our presentations, running the CBOC information through. So we essentially have 2 types of service from the firm. One I would refer to as kind of the boots on the ground over at all the projects. Right now we really only have one active one, and that's the John Knight project. So Jim Bombachi is our ally in that work. Jim is the project manager for us over there, on the site at least 2 days a week, and running all the interference for us with the contractor and the architect. We hold a weekly meeting every Tuesday that Jim and I attend as representatives of the district, going over timelines, costs, etc. The other part of the services is the whole budget expenditure tracking, and that's the work that Lee does for us that you have seen some evidence of tonight and in prior presentations. So we, similarly to the architect and the contractor, because we had a contractor time extension in change order number 6, which you approved 2 meetings ago. The contract with LPA has, the contract with School Site Solutions has an expiration date as well. So this contract carries us out to, I just lost my date. It carries us out through 2021, into June of 2021. The contract is again up to amount. That up to amount, not to exceed, is $474,499 for services, another $13,750 for reimbursables. So that's a total of $488,249. And we have, I just can't tell you how much we have benefited from School Site Solutions work. I honestly believe we'd be a mess without them, and instead we have really good support from them. I think the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee would make the same kind of comment. They've fostered really good relationship with architect and contractor, and are totally responsive and proactive with me as well. So we have an hourly rate for their work of $145, which matches the hourly rate that we began with in December of 2018. So I would ask for your approval on this contract. It continues us working with School Site Solutions into the future, finishing up the John Knight project, getting the Anderson project up off the ground. And we have some work to do over at Tremont as well. That will be part of the work that they do in the coming amount of time through June 30 of 2021. So I would entertain any questions that you have. And as we mentioned earlier, like the other contracts, this one was approved as a valid Measure Q expense by the CBOC last week.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Do we have any board questions or comments on this item?
No.
Okay, seeing none. Public, do we have any public questions or comments on this item?
I have two. Mike is up first.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
Go ahead, Mike.
All right. As we go and spend another $500,000 on this, I'd like to thank our former CBO, Melissa McCarta, and Brian Dolan for getting rid of John, who wanted like an additional $10,000. Of course, Mr. Dolan says that this is a great company because we have to make it look good for the taxpayers that we've now spent $1 million in management fees for this job, and yet we still have no bid for the windows and kitchen. 20 years in the trades, 10 as a general contractor. I wouldn't let School Site Solutions do the remodel of my Barbie dream house, but what do I know? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mike.
I have Julie up next.
Go ahead, Julie.
Hi, it's Julie Mustard. I've been on the CBOC since the beginning, and I just wanted to thank Lee publicly for her support. She's at every one of our meetings. She provides us detailed reports, answers all of our questions in a timely manner, and it's been great. And I concur with Brian. I don't know what we would do if we didn't have her there to answer some of these questions. She's definitely a content expert, and we appreciate her. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Any other public questions or comments?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve Amendment 1 to contract for School Site Solutions.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, it looks like we just have agenda items for future meetings next. Brian, is there anything else we need to, anything else?
No, just before we wrap up to go to closed session, I would just repeat what I said. I know we have some new people in the meeting at this point in time. We did not have any reopening items on our agenda for tonight. Next week is another special meeting that is July 30th. We'll begin that at 6 p.m. and we'll have a full update at that point in time. I will have my regular weekly update out, published out tomorrow afternoon. we will address that one next week.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any board requests for future agenda items? Okay, hearing none, I can discuss any with you at our meeting. Any board announcements? Seeing none, just to comment, our best goes out to the Masita family. And coming events, July 30th, special board meeting, August 6th, board meeting, August 10th, first day of school. And we're going to adjourn to closed session. Oh.
Yeah, Luke, we should actually ask if there's any comment on closed session items.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah,
Yeah, do we have any public comment on closed session?
I'm seeing none.
Okay. And so we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are back from closed session. The board took action in closed session by unanimous vote of all trustees present to reject the advisory fact-finding decision involving the district and SEIU, which was received by the district on June 16th, 2020. In doing so, the board reserves its right to implement its last best final offer to SEIU, having completed the impasse negotiations process. The decision will be posted on the district's website and available to the public after the required 10-day period has passed, which will fall on July 26th, 2020. Thank you. And that is the only announcement from closed session. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.